This isn't just another podcast. We're crushing the taboos and we're rewriting the rules. It's the space where we normalize women becoming wealthy. If you're done playing small and ready to become the CEO of your life and the architect of your future, then my girl, you're in the right room. Welcome to your wealthy era. Welcome to the Wealthy CEO podcast.
Okay, I am so excited to welcome a friend of mine that we are used to having conversations side by side on couches at La Luna in Nosara. But today we're in kind of a studio, sitting in different parts of the world, although we are kind of still in the same, we're now like in the same country. And I want to introduce you, my dear friend, Kristin. Thank you for joining the Freedom CEO podcast today.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me, Shae.
So, okay, we were talking a little bit offline about this importance of this topic. And, for those of you that don't know Kristin yet, we're going to dive into a bit of your story as well so that, we can bring that to life. But one of the differentials, when I speak to different women, even different women that I've already had on this show, on the podcast, is so many of the women have been in partnership and then have fallen out of partnership, whether that's by way of divorce or have lost their partner and now they're a widow. And then it's like they have this holy shit, this not even an aha moment. It's like a holy crap, I'm in this position and now I need to make some big decisions around understanding my wealth, understanding wealth creation, money, the language of money, how to invest, becoming an investor. And you, Chiquita, have not gone through that process and you have had to be your own hero, is what I say. And you have to have been your own provider as an independent, strong and fierce woman, which, I can relate in having to build, do, and figure it out myself. And so today, I just want to dive into your journey around figuring it out, because I know for you, from the little bit I know of your story, is that things were not handed over to you. You really had to create everything that you have and what you're sitting with today.
Yeah.
So dive in, share a little, what is your background? Where did it start for you? This whole money journey.
It's so interesting. I mean, I could start any number of places with this. And it is such, as we were talking offline, this is such an important conversation to have with women and for women. I really didn't know there was any other option, right? Because when you grow up in a money where you grow up in a household where there's not a lot of money, my parents loved me and they gave me everything they could, but there just wasn't a lot there. And so I remember when I was, in public school, I wanted a pair of $50 jeans. And my mom was like, well, that's more than I give you every month for everything. So you're going to have to figure that out. And at 13, I got my first job. I was a babysitter before that, but I got my very first actual job at Burger King. So I was wearing, a visor and tapered pants. And I was mortified that any of my friends from my, in high school, that they would come by and see me. I went to a really wealthy high school where, I was basically a bit of an outsider, but it was just that mentality. It was like, oh, if you want to figure something out, if you want something, if you want to make something happen, you just got to make it happen. And so I think from that necessity, I just became the woman that believed in her ability to figure shit out. And I don't think, there's good and bad to both, right? But I think you either have this from a young age out of necessity, or you can cultivate it in yourself, right? By just deciding that you're going to make things happen, right? And so if it's the difference, I think, between committing to something, I'll just do whatever it takes to figure it out, versus hoping or wishing that it will happen. And when you just take ownership of all of your results, your entire life changes. And, that pattern really followed me from that job at Burger King when I was 13 to my career as a commodities trader to, navigating 2 layoffs from a very volatile industry to moving to New Zealand, starting, my journey as an entrepreneur, coaching women, and then, eventually shifting into specifically coaching women around wealth and finances, because that was ultimately what I was actually really good at, and, what my experience was in. And that, coupled with a lot of the mindset work and the limiting belief work that I've done and the internal work I've done around myself, leads me to, what I do with women now, which is coach them not just on how to make more money and spend intentionally and invest, but also managing their mindset the whole way through to believe in their ability to create anything.
Totally. Okay. So I have a sidebar question first, because I'm always so interested. Your first job, Burger King, like, put that into perspective. Like, we are in 2024 right now. Do you remember, like, what year would that be? Like
13. So it would have been 90. I was born in 85.
90,
So 98.
98. Okay. Do you remember what your minimum wage was? Like, do you remember what you were getting paid?
Yeah, I think it was like probably $6.50 or $6.25 an hour.
$6.25 an hour. Crazy. Okay. And so you would have had to basically work all week in order to earn those pair of jeans.
I just, whatever I needed from life, no one was handing it to me. Like,
Yeah.
I remember the first time my parents ever handed me just $20 to go to the movies, I was like in my 30s. Like, it was just never, money was just not on offer, like in abundance, right? It was just, that wasn't the reality of, I watched my parents go through multiple layoffs too. Like, there was just the reality of, like, there's only a certain amount here.
So, okay. This is so important, because each of us grew up with a different circumstance, different cultural background, religious system or belief, that shapes, whether we realize it or not, we inherit a belief around money. And it can go one of two ways, right? Like, it can help you break out of something that is possibly negative, or you adopt it, and rightfully so, because that's what you were shown, that's what you were taught, that money is or is not. And so when I think of your potential money mindset, and this is like my question, but I'm wanting people to think, when can you recall your first experience around money, or hearing, maybe it was your parents. For you, it may not be your first experience around money as you would recall, but this was such a pivotal moment for you in your life, where your mom is saying to you, $50 is more than what I give you in a month. Like, and there is that lack, there's that scarcity, there's there's a poverty cycle there, right? Around the relationship of money that we don't have, and there is a lack. So I want to ask you this as a two-part question. How did you view money? I know you said you're a go-getter, like, okay, whatever it takes, I had to go out and get it. But did you have a struggle with your mindset around money based on the environment that you grew up in, and possibly not just even from your parents in your household? But, like, walk us through that a bit, because for you to journey to where you are today, especially even in coaching women in money and finances, I'm sure you've needed to go through your own limiting beliefs, break past those, reframe the narrative, reframe the mindset, to be in a position right now where you're like, I'm calling in wealth, and, like, all the abundance is available to me, and those of you guys that don't know Kristin, you don't know that she does that, but she does this. So, like, I see her and I know her, so I'm sharing with you, this woman is a manifesting goddess of, like, calling it in. So there's a transition, there's a 180 that you would have had to have gone through. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that, because I know so many people can relate to, like, your origin story around money.
Yeah, completely. And the way that I think about it, what you asked was my first memory around money. I don't know if I remember the specific moment, but I do remember what money felt like the whole time growing up. And that was always that there just wasn't enough, or specifically actually that there was always just enough, right? We never had any, I was always very much provided for, but there was never any luxury. Like, my stepdad saved up for months to buy himself an egg poacher. My mom's like, you can just buy that. But he was like, he just felt like there was this energy of like just enough around money. And so, yes, to your point, it took me work to rewire those patterns. And I think it's important for everyone to know that it's not just like you either have limiting beliefs around money or you don't. We all have many different beliefs across anything. And so I shared with you, my belief that I can figure anything out. Like that's a phrase that goes through my head that is very valuable. That also, the flip side of that is I also believe that making money had to be very hard work. And so sometimes your belief, like a single belief, can be really, powerful in some scenarios. And ultimately it's the same belief that might limit you. And so all the beliefs that you're aware of, the conscious ones and the unconscious ones, they're not just good and bad or limiting or not. It's like they're getting you certain results. And so if the belief around there's always just enough money is getting you the results of there constantly just being just enough money, then it might be worth looking at it. And for many of us, we're not even aware that it's operating because we're just convinced that it's true, right? And so what that led to for me was, yes, I could make lots of money and I could work really hard and I could create amazing results, and I would often just unwind it. So, when I talk about the layoffs that I went through, or other things that happened when I was, going through my upbringing, there are many examples I can point to where I would achieve a lot of success and then it would evaporate through my own doing or otherwise, right? And it's just this, when things come up for you as pattern, it's like if something is happening to you again and again, both of the layoffs that I went through completely outside of my control. And also, was it really, right? And so you got to reflect on if things are coming up for you in your life consistently, you are creating them. And if you think that something is outside of your control, even if it's a company decision and a layoff that was like came down from corporate, you owning your responsibility and all that gives you all the power. And so this is why I don't just teach women how to invest, because I know I could give you the formula all day long and in a DIY program. And if you're believing I'm not good with numbers, or if you're believing that it's really complicated and I'm afraid to lose money, you just won't take the action on it, right? And so this is why it's important to do the work in tandem. And like this is work I continue to do, or on my own next edge, or on my own, next piece of growth continuously, because you're always going to have a limiting belief that's in the way of creating your next result, right?
100%. And I think that's part of like, if you're in this constant pursuit of growth, on the other side of the growth is like the unknown, and it requires you to take risk, right? And so on the other side of that comes all kinds of things, whether it's imposter syndrome, not good enough, what if it doesn't work out, like all kinds of different limiting beliefs that come up, when you're on this journey of growth, as opposed to just like plateauing, or like what I say, like existing through life versus like living. When we're living, we're constantly growing. It doesn't have to be rapid growth, but like the goal is to evolve, be like a permanent student of life.
And
right?
there's pain. The ultimate, like the truth is that there's pain in both scenarios, right? There's pain in feeling like you're not growing and you're constantly stuck in the job that you hate, or the level of income that you don't want to be in, or the relationship that you feel like isn't serving you. There's pain in being comfortable, even though we think that there's not. And there's also pain in the unknown around like, what if I fail? What if this client I'm pitching, rejects me? What if I, implement this new marketing strategy and it all goes to shit, right? Like what will it mean about me? So it's not when you can fall in love, and I know that this is totally you too, Shae, when you can fall in love with the process of growth, everything shifts for you, right? Like it's actually really fun. It's like, oh, I'm really afraid right now, right? Like, or I'm really feeling rejected. Like I'm telling myself a story that I'm feeling rejected, right? And it's like, oh, just getting curious about what that feels like, right? Instead of trying to avoid it and suppress emotions.
Okay, so I have to share this with you because this is what's coming up for me when you're talking about choosing your pain. As of late, it's wild across so many different mediums. Some of my like silent mentors, those are basically mentors that are my mentors and they don't know it, right? Like, that I'm sure you have those where you like look upon them, and I've had so many over the years that have shaped like who I am today. But I've seen this recently, and I've heard this many times before, but as you're talking, this is what's coming up, is choosing your hard, because life is hard regardless. Being poor is really, really hard, but also making and earning a lot of money and becoming financially independent is also hard. It's not easy. And it doesn't have to always be hard, but as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial life is certainly not easy. It can be fun, but fun and hard coexist, like in the entrepreneurial life. And so it's like choosing your hard, because you have both scenarios that are hard. Just one has a more enjoyable outcome than the other,
Yeah.
And so it's, as you were saying, like choose your pain. It's like the reminder that life never promised to be fair. Life never promised to be easy. And it doesn't mean that life will always be hard, but it's like choosing your heart. What would you rather? Like, rather sit on the couch and have nothing and have to try to figure it out, or apply yourself and do the work, do the hard, and build and create something, or learn a new skill, step into uncharted territories that might be a little scary and start to just apply little by little. Even conversations like this, right? Where on the back end, there's all kinds of invitations, whether you're stepping into a coaching program of yours. I have my own webinars as well, like different replays around money and wealth that women can go through on their own. It's like the tools are available. And if you want to put in the time, you can change your outcome completely. And choosing your pain, choosing your hard.
I couldn't agree more. One of my favorite mentors is Brooke Castillo, and she talks a lot about this. I don't know if you listen to her. She's like what you're talking. Yes, all of it is hard, and it is hard. And it's also like, imagine there are lots of days when I put in, a really long day, and some of it is, sometimes it doesn't feel fulfilling, but sometimes it is just so, it's not the hard work that's a problem. It's like sometimes I get to the end of a day and I put in a really solid day and I'm like, oh, that felt so good. Like so fulfilling and so rewarding to like put in effort and energy, or like show up to my client calls and deliver and like over deliver for people. It's like, it feels good. Like work is not to be avoided. Right.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people actually don't realize they're doing is they're trying to avoid their own emotions. And so it's your willingness, and this is something that Brooke actually talks about, and I've been thinking about it a lot recently, is that when you are willing to feel any emotion, it creates amazing results for you, because trying to avoid hard work is really just trying to avoid feeling uncomfortable, or feeling like a total newbie, or feeling the pain of rejection, or feeling, failure, whatever that is that you're trying to avoid. So you just keep yourself in the same place, right? And that also means you don't grow. But if you're just willing to feel all those things, it's not even that it has to be hard. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But it's just, you are risking the negative feelings that most people just spend their whole life trying to avoid. And one of my other mentors we worked a lot around embodiment and tantra, and just she talked about the grand piano. So like when you're willing to, when you want to experience the highest of the highs, you also have to be willing to experience the lowest of the lows. And it's like playing all of the keys on a grand piano. It's like, it feels so juicy to feel both, like to feel the pain of heartbreak, right? It's like you could spend your whole life not dating anybody, or you could allow yourself, like risk the pain of potential heartbreak for the passion and the mind-blowing love, right? Like, is it worth it?
And even one step further, it tastes that much sweeter. To not experience the opposite, you don't appreciate those highs, or the love that you experience if you've never experienced the opposite of that, and the yin to the yang, right? And I couldn't agree with you more. I think the thing I would add to that is to remember that emotions are not a state of being. Emotions are temporary. They come and go. They're very fluid, and we're also in control of that. And so the sooner you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, that feeling of uncomfortableness will soon disappear. Because as you step into the risk and as you step into the unknown, all of those feelings around I'm a newbie, maybe imposter syndrome, the fear of rejection, everything that you listed, as you continue down that path, those fade away, because now you're gaining the experience, you're gaining knowledge, and you're applying, you're developing skills. And you start now developing confidence, new emotions, right? Like around that. So I think that's such an interesting point to bring up in building, and stepping into like new uncharted territory, I should say.
Totally. You have to love the space of the unknown is where all the possibility exists.
Yeah. Okay, so let me like shift slightly, because I want, like, you have such a heart, you're on a mission to serve women in wealth and finance. And I know at the beginning, I shared a couple things as to why I think it's important, but I'd love to hear, like, why is this at your core, like what you're focused on doing? Because you could do so many different things in coaching women.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very good and deep question. There was really this moment for me, when I was running my last business, there was always a part of me. I used to own a co-working space in New Zealand. There was always a part of me that knew it was out of alignment, that just like deep down, this little niggle that, what I thought I was getting into this business for was helping grow community, helping people grow. This is my growth and evolution is one of my deepest values. And really, ultimately, what I was paid to do is keep the lights on in a building. And so you can imagine, after a number of years of doing that, it, was out of alignment, but I just wouldn't admit it to myself because it felt very difficult to unwind. And running this business just is entirely different. Like, there's no part of me that ever, on the hard days, on the easy days, there's just no part of me that ever questions it. And so this is, why I know it's so aligned. There really was this moment where I channeled the map for the program that I run. And it really is, I mean, logically, it's the intersection of, my background in finance, which I'm uniquely skilled to, help women with, and my coaching skills, and also all the personal development I've done. And so I think that one of the reasons that I got into doing this work was I was working with a lot of very successful women, and I was hearing the same thing come up again and again. Like, I'm not good with numbers, I'm not good with money, and just seeing all of the ways that women hold themselves back around, and the things that we're programmed with, right? Like even the idea that in society, women are not encouraged to create growth or to create, 7 figures, right? Like it's not seen and applauded in the same way it is for men. And so there are lots of things, both like internally on a personal level and externally from society, that we are programmed with that limit us. And what I've seen time and time again is how many of these stories apply to money and wealth, that I'm just like, I'm uniquely equipped to not just coach women on the strategy around how to make more, and the business strategy, or how to invest, or how to manage money, because I've both learned all of those skills and also implemented them for myself. But what really changes women's lives, and this is what I found in my own journey, when I was working in corporate, I was just spending all my money. I was not investing it. I was not intentional with it. I was not building wealth. Like, no one ever showed me how. And so what really changed my life was when I started to do that deep inner work. I started to see how my beliefs were creating my entire reality. I started to see how I was responsible for even the layoffs, even though it was hard to connect. I started to see how I was like subtly playing the victim in so many areas of my life. And so when I started working with my first coach and understanding how my beliefs change my actions, change my feelings, change my results in every area of my life, my whole life changed. And this is, every woman comes to me wanting to make more money, right? It's like everyone wants to make more money. But the reason that their life changes when they work with me is because, yes, you make more money as a result of learning these skills, but you also learn to shape your beliefs and get rid of the ones that you don't need or want anymore, and create new ones, so that you not just are making more money, you're more confident in your ability to do it, you're investing, all of those things, but you anchor it in. It's not just like a fleeting thing, like a budget that you'll, never use again after 2 weeks of seeing it, right? You actually change who you are from the inside out, and your relationship to money changes, but your relationship to yourself changes. Your relationship to the world changes. Just one simple example is, like, I see women at all earning levels, like 50 grand a year, $1 million a year, multi-millions. And like the same belief, if it's not enough, happens at every level. So they think that there's actually not enough, but they're just believing there's not enough, right? And so if you don't change that belief, that story will follow you.
Right.
at every stage. And so that's true of, many different beliefs that you're holding right now. And so it's so important that if you really want to change not just your like bank account or your investment account or your portfolio, but if you want to change your life, like this is the work that you get to do.
If this episode is bringing you value, can I please ask you for 30 seconds of your time to subscribe to the show from wherever you're tuning in from? Leave a review and share this episode. This is how we amplify the message, we grow the show, and we multiply the impact for women.
And I'm just going to stress on it that if like there has never been, I should say there's never been, but we are living in such a time that this work is so important for people, but specifically women, to be getting a hold of and a grasp on now. When you look at the global, not just like what's going on in Canada or the United States, but when you look at what's going on in the world and the fall of fiat currency and how the dilution of the value of our currency is changing. And when you look at every fiat currency in history, it's always gone to zero. And we're at this like crazy time where there is a global shift that's happening, whether you want to call it a new world, a new system, but like we are entering into a lot of new. And I think it's so important right now that people are understanding money, the language of money, because regardless of money being the fiat currency that we know, it only has value because we've applied it to it, right? And so if that changes, that medium changes, the principles around money fundamentally will stay the same. But understanding the language of money and then how to make that money work for you, as opposed to you constantly working for it and trading your time for money, is so important.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear, like, from your perspective, either even just like on that, but what area are you focusing in right now when it comes to making your money work for you? Because as you know, there's many different asset classes that people can be investing in, whether it's in real estate, stocks and bonds, it could be crypto. There's different gold, like precious metals, there's different mediums and asset classes. And this isn't investment advice, guys. I'll just say that as a disclaimer for both Kristen and I right now. Okay. And this isn't to say right or wrong, simply just sharing. You're on our couch right now. If we could bring you to Nosara, we would do that. But just sharing girl secrets. And to your point, and you touched on this earlier, women don't do this. And this is like one of these privileges that I'm wanting to open that up for other women to be like, what are you investing in right now? Where are you losing? Like, what were your mistakes? Because men are so good at doing this. They get together on the golf green. They get together at the bars. They get together in the locker room after the gym. And men share money secrets, what they're investing in, what's working, what's performing, what did they lose, who's their new investment advisor, portfolio manager, all of these things. And we as women don't either think to do that, are embarrassed to ask. And so this is part of one of these where I'm like pulling back the veil. And Kristen and I are just sharing with you, but just as the disclosure, like, we don't know your financial situation. We don't know what your circumstance is. And so you should still run this by your own accountant, tax advisor, whoever it is. You can definitely say, I heard this on a podcast, but go speak to your people who are going to give you sound advice based on your circumstances. So with that being said, on our couch, like what are you like, what's your go-to right now? What are you focused on?
Yeah. And I want to mirror too what you were saying before around that this is an important conversation for women. It's only been a few decades that we've been empowered to make our own money. And I think this conversation around investing is really the next evolution of growth for us, right? And so it's natural that it feels a little bit clunky, that we don't feel totally confident doing it. That, men, like you said, have been doing this for much longer with much more resources. That's just a fact. And we do need more conversations around it. Like we need more women. That's why getting this conversation about money and getting like the idea that money is taboo off the table. It's like, no, you should be able to talk about this the same way you talk about a recipe without any weirdness,
Totally.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So I love this conversation. And the question that you asked is a little bit of a tricky one because this depends on who you are and how much you have, how much you have in assets and where you're already invested. So there's not, I just want to set the stage of like, there's not just one right thing. For someone, it might be property. For another person, it might be, what I'll share in a moment. For others, it might be crypto. I think I want to share this in the context of the biggest mistake a lot of people make is that when they're getting started, or even if they have a portfolio that they just don't understand, it's like they inherited it, or, maybe they were divorced, right? And they have a bunch of money that maybe is invested, maybe it's not. And they might be sitting on a lot of money, but they are beginning in their ability to understand strategy around it. Where I see a lot of people go wrong. And I actually got a message this morning, which is funny enough. Somebody sent me an investment. It's like a 30% a month return. And so you see these things, a 30% a month return is a very big return.
Great. Yeah.
You see these things come across your table or come across it. And what I see a lot of women do is it's the same way. By a lot of women, they'll start with crypto. And it's like, when you start with something like crypto, you don't realize that is like gambling. And when you end up losing money, you internalize that as, oh, I'm shitty at investing, when really you just didn't approach it in the right way. And so when you see a lot of those really high return things, that comes with a lot of risk. That's just how investments work, is a higher risk, a higher return is associated with a higher potential risk, which means a higher potential that you could lose all your money. And so some of those things, and this is why I set this up, is some of those things can be really interesting. And like you and I might be, and my portfolio definitely has crypto in it, and it has, some of those higher risk bets for sure. It is a small percentage of my overall investments. What I have as a baseline, and I'm sure you do too, is assets that are growing reliably, predictably, profitably, consistently. And that's what I know you invest in property, right?
Yep. And I'm in the market too. I'm in the market and real estate. Obviously, I grew up in it. So I'm a little biased towards that, but it's also because it's what I know thoroughly.
Of
course.
Like
I understand it very well. Yeah. So yeah.
And so you're looking for predictable returns. And then of course, some of those higher risk bets make sense once you have the rest of it going. But what I see a lot of women doing is thinking that, oh, I want to get a 30% return. That's where I start. And then they just lose it all. Or like I've watched clients lose 2 million. I watched friends, lose like 2 million in bad bets overnight, or, over half of their portfolio, like very quickly. And so where I start clients with is like a baseline of, if you're going to invest in the market, like literally just 3 ETFs. An ETF is an exchange traded fund. It's like a fruit basket of investments. So it's the reason most people don't want to start here is maybe they don't know exactly which ones to choose, but it's not super sexy.
Right.
It will make you a lot of money, but it doesn't sound sexy. And so it's like, would you rather be rich, or would you rather sound sexy at the dinner table to your friends and be losing money behind the scenes? Because that honestly, what I see time and time again is so many people that are telling you about their big returns. Someone said the other day to me, I just got 18% this month. And I'm like, but what are you getting this year? And they're like, oh, my portfolio is down for the year. It's like, you're not making money consistently, but you made money this week. So
this week. Yeah.
Just be aware that like when you're honestly, the strategy that I approach, market investments with is very simple. It's very boring. It doesn't require you to watch your investments all the time or be a genius or get it lucky. It works for everyone. And it's not sexy, but it makes you money.
It's so funny because again, you're saying like the analogy of being at the table, pretending or fronting or acting like you have a high performing portfolio versus something that's a little more boring and over time is going to perform. And it's, again, this is the polarity of choosing your heart, right? That's like choosing your heart, choosing like something that is like a little more boring, requires more patience. And in the long run, you'll have all of the sexiness that you want to buy, whatever
Yeah.
that sexiness
Well,
is, right?
and the thing about investing is you don't want your investments to be exciting because you don't want to spend all your time managing investments. You want to spend your time
No.
living your life, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing that your investments can just grow for you without you having to do a whole bunch,
Yeah.
so that you can spend your time doing all the other things. You don't want to be stressed that your investments are going to zero. You don't want to spend, 4 hours a day having to micromanage them. It's like, that's not the purpose. I mean, for some people, that's what they choose and that's exciting for them. But for most people, and for, I would say most women, like, that's not what you're after.
Totally. I
Yeah.
agree. And I mean, when you speak to some of the most successful people in the world and you look at their different revenue streams that they have in their portfolios, they will tell you that majority of their best performers are all boring. It's like the things that people overlook that, you either don't think to invest in, or to your point, you don't want to invest in because it's not as flashy, it's not as cool, maybe it's not on trend, and real compounding wealth is usually not built that way. There's absolutely opportunity in a trend, in an upswing, like you can, but to your point, you should be a very skilled investor at that point, knowing when to hop in and knowing when to hop out, right? And so that's not a place where you start
Yeah.
to get into the game.
And honestly, what you're talking about, hopping in and hopping out of stocks, like Nvidia is one that's in the press a lot, right?
Yeah.
What people don't realize is that when something's in the media, most of the opportunity, and not always, right? There's still more upside in a lot of these, but most of the opportunity is already gone. The people that made a lot of money, like a lot of money in Bitcoin, didn't get in last year. They're not riding the waves now. They got in 2012 when it was
Right.
nothing burger, right? So the best time to get into an investment is when it doesn't look exciting or appealing, right? And so riding trends is just people think there's more money in it than there really is, and it's just like, yeah, it can be fun, but I would treat that as the same way you treat going to the casino with your girlfriends. It's like, whoo, it's fun.
I agree. And an investor principle, and again, this isn't something that you have to stick to every single time, but if you don't already have an active portfolio that I'm going to say is like relatively balanced, you've got a little bit of real estate, you have precious metals, maybe you're in the stock market as well. The idea as a new investor is to be cash flowing and is to be earning and compounding. And so, yes, 100%, when you get in early, that's where your biggest upside is and your gains are going to be. However, you're playing for a longer game because your money is typically not performing. It's appreciating, but it's not paying out. There's not typically, especially in early days, or there's not a dividend payout, right? So you have to be able to stomach basically saying goodbye to that money and I'll see you hopefully later, bigger and better. But that's like a long game. And that's typically not where you should start to build your investment portfolio. You want to invest in assets that are appreciating always, but are giving you a cash flow and they are performing, so that you can take your compounded profit, you can take your cash flow from your performing asset and reinvest that. And then sure, when you have some of that, you could take some of that capital and go, this is something new. I'm doing my research and I'm going to put a little bit of risk in that. But like you even said, it's like, I call that fun money. It's like whatever happens to it, I don't need it to live on. I'm not relying on it. I'm happy I can sleep at night. I'm not going to have anxiety if it disappears. And you bet on it and you go, okay, let's see what happens in a few years from now, right? But it's not a point of entry into the investment world that you should be doing.
I agree. My crypto portfolio, I have it. I very rarely check it because in my mind, I'm like, it could all be gone tomorrow and it would be fine. Right. Like I've made a lot of money in crypto. I've lost money in crypto. I'm, probably up a little bit, but it's not going to make or break my investments. Whereas if that was all I had, I would be stressed out watching it every day.
Totally. And you know what? I'll be quite honest. I share the same with you. Like I will check mine probably like once every 6 months right now. Like, I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, I have that actually like stashed there. I'm like, I should check this wallet to see like how it's doing.
And then you have to remember your login. You're like, what was my login?
Yeah. And then you have to use the authenticator and 18 different DNA tests to try to just get back into my thing. And I'm like, this is so hard. Like, why did I do this? Thankfully, the few times I have gone in, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's like why I did it. You know, it hasn't been bad. But I've also, luckily, I've not checked on a day where it has like, you know, dropped like completely. But yeah, like it's so hard to get into these freaking wallets. Like, you know, but okay, Kristen, tell me, what is on the horizon for you? What do you have going on? How can women best find you? And is there anything, you know, that you have coming up that would be a good landing place for women to jump in and get their feet wet?
Yeah. I mean, if someone is listening to this, like as the episode airs, I actually have a 6-week investing accelerator, which is, I don't normally ever do this. So it's in 6 weeks, I'll teach you everything you need to know about investing. And whether you have a portfolio growing or you're just getting started, like end to end, we'll set up and optimize your portfolio. So that's super fun. But if you guys are watching this at a much later time, you know, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. And I actually have a free training you can watch all around breaking down all the myths and biggest mistakes that people make around investing. And so I can link that for you in the show notes for everyone to look out for.
Amazing. Okay. Well, you're on the Freedom CEO podcast. So I need to ask you this question. How has you becoming the CEO of your life, not your business, but of your life, how has that brought you freedom?
This is so good. You know, I'll try to keep it short because I know we want to be concise for time. I just went to Burning Man for the first time. And, you know, people go to Burning Man for a week of full self-expression, for a week of like being able to wear dresses if you're a man, or paint your nails, or to just like be whoever it is, dress like a unicorn, be whoever it is that you want to be.
Right.
And I found it, you know, really, I just found this like deep sense of gratitude through the experience, because I realized I live like that every day. You know, I live a very unconventional life. I surf in Nosara like most of the year. I have complete freedom and flexibility with my schedule. I can fly, you know, to Mexico tomorrow if I wanted to. And I don't live, you know, if I'm not feeling a certain place or I'm not resonating with somewhere, I have the choice, like an ultimate choice, not just because of money, but because of how I choose and structure my life, to lead a life that is deeply fulfilling at every step. And what that requires is a willingness to question societal norms, to question the buy a white picket fence and get married and have 2.5 kids and do the things you think you should do in life. And, you know, money makes everything more accessible and easier to do. And that's so powerful. But ultimately, the money won't create that freedom for you. That comes from within, and it comes from your willingness to choose you over society, to choose you over what your parents think you should do, or your friends, or choose you over what your neighbors are judging about you. It's like, live the life that you want, whatever that looks like. And so for me, that's, you know, with my little Yorkie on the beach in Nosara, but for you, that could be something totally different. And I think that, you know, whether you're a man or woman or otherwise, like everyone deserves that.
Oh, what a beautiful and powerful answer. Seriously. I love that. I love that. I love you. I'm so grateful for your time and coming on the show today. And like Kristen said, everything's going to be linked up in the show notes. If you're not following her on IG, it's been on the bottom of the screen. It'll also be in the show notes as well. But thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for doing this work, Shae. I know, you know, women and people just need more role models like you that they can look to really give them possibility of what they can create. So yeah, grateful to have you as a friend.
If something in today's episode resonated with you or sparked a shift, tag me on IG or send me a DM. I genuinely love hearing what lands for you. And if it spoke to you, share it or leave a quick review. It helps more women find this show and step into their own wealthy era. Until next time, lead with purpose, live with intention, and stay wealthy.